Dr Blewett was in Armidale last night to present the 1992 Madgwick Lecture. University academics turned out in full dress to attend the public lecture entitled No End to History, Thoughts on International Politics and Trade in the 1990s. Dr Blewett also waxed lyrical on local matters and the state of the Australian economy.
I believe that the signs of economic recovery are there. We've got on top of inflation. Our balance of payments situation is much better, and the signs are that the economy is beginning to move again.
Dr Blewett says the recent cuts to state government jobs in regional centres is not helping to get the economy back on track, but rather adding to the federal government's worries of having to provide for the unemployed.
Well, I am concerned about some of the decisions to close down local and regional offices because they do add to the employment problems that many provincial centres are facing. I don't know the details of this, but it really is contrary to what the Commonwealth is doing, because we are at the moment tending to open more offices, both social security particularly, in smaller centres, because with technology nowadays you can deliver services with small offices in a way you couldn't do 10 years ago.
Dr Blewett says overcoming Australia's high unemployment rate will ultimately be the key to economic recovery.
The Hunter already has a periodic centre at Tomago, but the department says another is needed urgently. The public works depot opposite the local high school has become surplus to the government's needs, and the Department of Corrective Services has identified it as a possible site for the new centre. The facility would house 70 to 80 weekend prisoners and could also become the department's regional headquarters.
The department has sent an officer up to discuss the matter on site with one of the progress associations, and I was invited to attend that meeting. My estimation is that the department is certainly sincere.
While there are indications that this will become the site of the Hunter's second weekend detention facility, local member John Price wants the department to make its intentions clear and let local residents know what's going on.
It's high time people knew what was going to be on their doorstep and formed an opinion. I mean, a weekend detention centre isn't all that bad, but it still may be sufficient to worry people, so they should have the opportunity through a public meeting to question Department of Corrective Services officers.
Such is the essence of Break Free. People believing in themselves, using Christianity as the springboard. During the last 2 weeks, a variety of outreach functions have been held in venues ranging from pubs, prisons and schools to this community seminar at Newcastle's Entertainment Centre last night, all designed to create unity in an often unstable society. Break Free is spearheaded by this man, John Smith, a major force of the Christian motorcycle club called God Squad. John's mission is to take the church out of its 4 walls into the marketplace and the everyday experiences of the community. It's a holistic approach to life, not just a religious one.
You can have a one-dimensional person that's just a religious fruitcake that can't talk about anything but getting to heaven. And you can have a secularist who won't admit that there's a mystery and a wonder and that there are aspects of life that cannot be materialistically explained.
Today, John took this message to Williamtown RAF Base.
Break Free organisers say the holistic approach is proving very successful. An indication of this is the cross-section of the community who are coming forward for help, such as physical abuse and marriage breakups to psychological and financial problems.
It's hoped campaigns modelled on the Hunters Break Free will spread Australia-wide. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. The fair offered something for everyone. Organically grown food, art displays, even possible defences against unwanted toxins.
We're here today to let people know of what they can do in their local area or on a global sense for the environment.
A variety of local conservation groups were on hand to explain measures being taken to preserve the area's natural resources. There were also energy-saving forms of transport on offer, plus environmentally friendly ways to relieve stress. Under the sunny skies, while some opted to soak up the available information, others chose to simply sit and enjoy the music. Despite cool conditions, organisers have been overwhelmed with the public's response to the inaugural field days. They say the three-day event has attracted thousands of people.
The sales that have been reported have been quite well. There's quite a range of stands here and sites here.
And variety there was. Everything the small-scale or hobby farmer may need, or at least thinks might be needed. 87 exhibitors participated, some coming from as far afield as Queensland. One of the biggest draw cards of the day was the camel race. Although for some getting started proved a little difficult, once up and running, there was no holding back. Next year, organisers are planning a larger scale field day focusing on the beef industry.
The Randwick Masters are made up entirely of former Galloping Green first graders, and names such as Ella, Melrose, Wright and Burke brought back plenty of memories for rugby enthusiasts. The Snappers, made up of players from Beaches and Harlequins, opened well, Dwayne Vines towing through and winning the race for the ball. Then their defence opened up a bit from a scrum win, and Mark Moran seized the opportunity to dart through and touch down between the posts. Gary Ella was casually setting the greens on many a raid, and wasn't long before they were in again. Some clever work off the toe. And the magic of the Ella brothers, Gary and Glenn, looks as though it hasn't faded. The ball going wide as the greens probe the Snappers' defence yet again. Enter Michael Tonks to stem the tide, and Tonks hit back, scoring another smart try. And then an excellent move by the Snappers, keeping the ball alive in every possible situation. Leith McNee handling twice before scoring himself. Attack being the order of the day, a double wraparound by the green machine, and they showed how a set move should be worked. Then a simple switch of play caught the Snappers off guard, and the Randwick Masters were safely home 44-26. It was the Falcons who got the early break. Former roller Paul Kuiper was in everything. Boomers captain Larry Senstock cleaned up Michael Johnson in a big way, but MJ bounced back to score his 6,000th NBL point. Ahead by 9 at the first break, Falcon fever had arrived with the feathers, and Everett Stevens provided the fireworks. But the Rollers hit back. Mike Mitchell a great three-pointer, and then he combined with Smith to put the visitors in front. Then tragedy for the Falcons. Shortly after this dunk, Paul Kuiper's night came to a crashing halt. A dislocated knee for Kuiper. Dozier with a dunk, and the Falcons led by 6 at the long break. Newcastle's floor was proving to be pretty hard. Senstock the next to be injured. Mitchell was just brilliant. Neil Turner was having a blinder in attack as well as defence, and Peter Harvey stretched the lead to 10. Right on the buzzer, Ron Ratliff gave the Rollers the lead. The Falcons opened well again to go out by 9. Mike Mitchell levelled the score. And with time almost up, Lafleur gave them the lead. With 2.9 seconds left, Everett Stevens nearly equalised. Final score, Gold Coast 113, Newcastle 111.
Two Narrabri fire units went to the property Riverbend on the outskirts of town at around 11:30 this morning. The old weatherboard dwelling was well alight and firefighters were unable to save it. The blaze started in the main bedroom and quickly spread. Firefighters were hampered by a lack of water and were forced to pump water from a dam near the house. The dwelling owned by Dennis Smith was being rented by a farm worker. Although the house was insured, it's not clear whether the contents were. Few of the man's possessions were salvaged, only a stereo and a television. Scientific squad from Tamworth will go to the scene tomorrow to determine the exact cause of the blaze. Maitland's Polish community opened its doors today to give Talara Primary School students a bird's-eye view of their native culture. The leader of the Polish Association gave a first-hand account of life in Poland and, of course, a taste of the native delicacies proved very popular. During the next 2 weeks, students will concentrate on specific aspects of Poland and will replicate some of the crafts they saw today.
I think if we understand multiculturalism and what that multiculturalism means, then we appreciate people as individuals. And by appreciating people as individuals, we will then respect each other.
In the second part of the multicultural program, next semester, Talara students will study China. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The inquiry began yesterday when police went to this quarry near Reservoir Road after a young child reported seeing two boys aged between 10 and 12 using a rock to explode railway detonators. What they found were fragments of up to 80 detonators. They believe the youngsters had several more containers, each carrying a dozen more.
They're extremely dangerous, particularly in the hands of people who are inexperienced. They have been known to blow arms and hands off people.
Police say the detonators are usually stored under tight security, although an occasional one is stolen from railway lines. This is the first time they've seen so many in one haul.
There's two local sites around Newcastle where they're stored, but they haven't been stolen from there as far as we know.
Police are appealing to parents in the Glendale and Cardiff areas to question their children and, if possible, arrange to return the detonators either in person or by leaving the explosives at a pre-arranged location. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It's taken 7.5 months and $180,000 to restore the earthquake-damaged deanery. Today, Dean Lawrence reopened it. Within the next 2 years, the Dean hopes to repeat the repair job on the cathedral, which suffered $3 million worth of earthquake damage. All a timely facelift, he says, with the church about to enter a new era.
New beginnings in lots of ways. Centenaries always give you a chance to look back to the past, see what's happened and learn from it and hopefully improve on it.
The Dean says next Tuesday, the actual centenary day, will be full of celebrations.
A real attempt is to make sure that we remind the citizens of Newcastle about the terrific heritage that we have, both in terms of the cathedral and of all its treasures, and we do plan to have a street procession such as was held 100 years ago.
The New South Wales Coal Association, made up of employer groups, has supported the campaign by the Miners' Federation.
I think it's wonderful that attention is being drawn to the importance of the coal industry. I think for too long all sectors of the industry have concentrated on looking inwards, and we haven't brought to the attention of the community in general how vital we are to their future.
In a separate issue, the Executive Council of the Coal Association today discussed the possibility of privatising the Hunters rail line. The association has always maintained government freight charges are too high. It claims privatising the line could be a far more economical way of transporting coal from the mine to the Port of Newcastle.
We've put a proposal to the government that says what we're interested in is internationally competitive freight rates. We don't have a philosophical commitment as to who owns the railways. What we want is lower freight rates.
But Director Meredith Hellicar says the association will only take over running the lines if the price is right.
If we can get it at the right price, which gives the community what it deserves for its asset in State Rail, but equally is a sensible commercial price, then I think it would be beneficial.
In the news tonight, the Giles Royal Commission recommends the deregistration of both the Building Workers Union and the Master Builders Association. Jeanette McHugh wins her battle for the vacant ministerial spot, and Greenpeace protests nationally over global warming. Details, NBN News at 6.
It's Australia's richest incentive series for trainers, and the aim of this trip is to educate the Kiwis about racing outside Sydney and Melbourne. The three clubs reckon the prize money on offer in this year's Grand Slam will be bait enough.
Wyong's 100,000, their cup, we're 250 and Canberra's 110. It's pretty good prize money, and the bonus that we're offering is $100,000 if any trainer can win the three cups with the same horse.
John Curtis has his bags packed. He'll leave for the land of the long white cloud tomorrow.
We'll be at Ellerslie on Saturday and Monday, and we have an official launch on Sunday in Auckland.
Armed with videos, each club will also be promoting its own spring carnival.
We're criticised for not promoting enough, and I'd like to think that at least we're making the effort to promote not only Newcastle racing but Newcastle itself.
"21-year-old Georgie Harwood leaves for Canada at the beginning of September. Before then, not only has she a heavy training schedule, but she has to raise $3,500.
I've not only got to worry about training, I've got to worry about the money getting there. It's great to be on the team now, but I've also got to look at these things of getting over there because the event is being held on the other side of Canada.
Georgie finished second in her age division at the Australian Championships and fourth at the Australian Sprint titles, and she believes she has a chance at the upcoming championships in Canada.
It'll be tough. Being in Canada, well, last year they were in Australia and we're a lot more geographically isolated, but we'll have a lot more Americans, Canadians and Europeans, so it will be tough.
Presently working on her weakest event, cycling, Georgie has come back from injury and changed her training to suit Armidale's wintry conditions.
With Armidale's winter, with the wind and the cold conditions, but I've changed my training program around a lot from last season. I'll be doing a lot of different work.
With 3 months till the championships, Georgie is furiously training for the event, while at the same time seeking public support to get her there.
We've mapped some things out and I'm hoping that the community will get behind me and support me.
Last night's game in unpleasant conditions at Scully Park was made even more cold and miserable for the boys from McCarthy, with Peel High runaway winners 24-0. It was almost sweet revenge for Peel after being soundly beaten by Farrer in a Commonwealth Cup match last week. Try scorers for the match were Craig Wright, Paul Craigie, Jamie Edwards, Shane Field and Rainey Davis, with Davis converting 4 out of 4 attempts at goal. McCarthy's only point-scoring attempt saw them fail to kick a penalty goal. In the other two matches last night, Oxley High beat Farrer Colts 22-10, while Farrer Seconds trounced the Manila team 22-10. The midweek table now sees Farrer Seconds leading the comp, with Oxley High close behind. Clubs from Sydney and northern New South Wales have been locked in fierce combat through a series of regattas which began late last year and culminated in Port Macquarie on the Hastings River today. Perfect conditions were conducive to fast times, and there was some spectacular and close racing by all clubs, with success on the day shared throughout the entries. And it seemed that there were rowers of all ages, some competing in their age groups, but some combined to try and steer their crews to victory. Taree's Manning Club were successful in the Veterans Mixed Fours with a first and a third placing, and this performance was timely, with the National Veterans Regatta just around the corner. Again, Manning were victorious, this time in the Novice Women's Four, with University of New South Wales in second place. In the Men's Novice Fours, a stunning win for North Shore. It was the first time the crew had been in a race. Uni of New South Wales protested against North Shore for being too good, subsequently dismissed. As clubs battled for vital points, it was Nepean who were declared the overall champions, from Uni of New South Wales, with Drummoyne third.
To launch the Hunters' contribution to No Tobacco Day, these preschoolers made a song and dance about the dangers of smoking. To these toddlers, explaining why they don't like smoking is a piece of cake.
It's not good for you.
Why not?
Because it can hurt your feelings.
Ladies and gentlemen, if
Daddy will smoke all the time.
Do you like your daddy smoking?
No.
Why not? Dr Graham Vimpani from the Hunter Area Health Service says after last week's landmark passive smoking court decision, cigarettes now have legal as well as social drawbacks. That could help make these kids part of a smoke-free generation.
It's a very realistic prospect. I think increasingly it's going to become less and less acceptable to smoke, certainly in the workplace and in closed areas of recreation inside.
While health authorities hold hope of a smoke-free life for tomorrow's teenagers, a Newcastle University survey into drug use has discovered today's adolescents are still puffing away at an alarming rate. According to the study, 33.5% of 15 to 24-year-old females surveyed said they'd smoked in the past 7 days. The percentage for males was almost 1 point higher.
They like to take risks, they like to, it seems a mature sort of thing to do by some younger people. It's hard to explain to a 17-year-old that they might die early.
The study of 2,500 people will be used to help evaluate drug reduction programs. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
At the Long Playing Grounds and attracted 33 teams.
We've got teams here from as far out west as Watercourse, which is out the other side of Moree, right through to the coast as far as Maxwell and Grafton and Coffs Harbour. So they sort of come from everywhere.
The grounds were in excellent condition for play. The tournament was used to make selections for the Australian Zone Championships being held at Corindai over the long weekend. A grade was only contested by 3 teams, and Maxville proved to be too strong for the locals, with Gyra going down in the final. Maxville and Galloping Gully fought out the B grade final, with Maxville again getting up. C grade saw the locals avenge their A grade loss, with Gyra taking the game from Coffs Harbour, and in D grade, first was tied between Inverell and Dorrigo, and the Coffs Harbour team was runner-up.
"20-year-old apprentice greenkeeper Brian Warboys was working as usual at Talara Bowling Club today after topping the state TAFE greenkeeping course. He spent 3 years studying grass types, pests and diseases, soils, fertilisers and pesticides at Charlton TAFE. The softly spoken greenkeeper was surprised by the news, which he says will mean a lot to his career.
It's a big step. There's a lot of people out there looking for good greenkeepers, and hopefully this will help me on the way.
And the state's top TAFE horticulturalist is an airman's wife at RAF Base Williamtown. Susan Henry studied part-time at Charlestown TAFE, just finishing before the birth of her Joseph.
I wanted to have a nursery business when my husband retires from the Air Force. And I still do too, but I'll have to gain a bit of practical experience first.
Susan will have a different nursery to work in for a while, but hopes eventually to return to her roots in Lismore and set up a business. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
How to best operate a pension fund for New South Wales miners has been a running sore for the industry for the best part of 50 years. But after 3 years of talks and the hammering together of a new package, Northern District Union Secretary Ron Land says the fund was in a position to get an extra $16 million a year. Mr Land says all that was needed was state government approval for the changes to the Mine Workers Superannuation Act to take effect from July the 1st. But then came the Metherell affair.
Because of their preoccupation with the Metherell affair, the legislation was not prepared. The cabinet minute that was required to have the legislation prepared wasn't dealt with, and as a result, the New South Wales Miners Pension Fund will be $8 million the worse.
The union says that $8 million, or 6 months' worth of extra income, is lost because the earliest the changes can be implemented is next year. And Mr Land claims with the fund $264 million in the red, the extra revenue is badly needed.
So it certainly means less income for the fund, and it means a lot of work that has been done to a timetable that largely was set by the New South Wales Government is now being put on hold simply because the New South Wales Government can't get its own act together.
The union says efforts to talk further with Industrial Relations Minister John Fahey and Premier Nick Greiner about the issue have been unsuccessful. But a spokesman for the government's superannuation board says Mr Fahey is yet to receive an executed agreement for the new pension package. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
You have to get up early to beat these Moree bakers at the pie game. Pies are mass-produced on the premises 3 times a week. Just one batch amounts to more than 350 pies. Already a favourite with the locals, the Moree Bread Shop is taking its produce to Sydney later this month to give city slickers a taste of country pie. The shop's bakers will compete in the official Great Aussie Meat Pie competition against other pie makers from all over the country. And how do Moree's meat pie manufacturers rate their chances?
I think it's the flavour of the filling. There's no additives in it. It's all meat. There's no rubbish goes in it. Definitely not. It's all topside.
According to the guys, the meat pie never seems to lose its popularity and in tough times proves to be a kind of recession beater.
This year we've sold more in the summertime than we did last winter. And I put that down to the economy. because a lot of people want something filling, nutritious and cheap, so they go for the meat pie.
So time to test these theories, and the verdict?
That's excellent.
These are just some of the exhibits on show at the festival, and not everything the event has on offer is static.
We've had one performance of Shakespeare already. Coming up, we still have to go. We have the Big Wool Awards tonight and Wednesday night. We have another Shakespeare performance on Friday night, and we have the Australian Chamber Orchestra on Saturday night, and concluding the festival is the big Australiana fair over at the Taree Racecourse.
It's tipped to be one of the biggest events of the festival, promising something for everyone.
There's approximately 30-odd stalls and exhibitions set up. There's lots of things for the children to do. There'll be food to eat. We hope to have the camels over from Port Macquarie for camel rides. There will be entertainment. And it's just a good day for the whole family.
Education Department Assistant Director General for the North West, Frank Fisher, has expressed concern that the Teachers Federation is going ahead with the strike, but he says it'll be business as usual at all local schools. But he's urging parents to check with schools to determine what supervision will be provided. The strike has been called over proposed changes to staffing procedures and transfers for teachers.
The major one is concerned with the department's proposition to base budgets for teachers' salaries in schools. We have not been given details of the proposal, but if it's implemented, it may mean serious implications for schools, such as the inability to pay staff.
Warns that unless the issue is resolved soon, further industrial action is likely.
The meeting tomorrow will consider further industrial action before the end of June. The Federation remains ready to re-enter negotiations with the department, but we are not prepared to abandon transfer rights for teachers, nor to endorse the movement to schools of payment for teachers' salaries. So unless there's some movement, then I guess schools may be in for a round of industrial upheaval.
No, you're right. This